It's Mr. Galinsky looking at his watch. Are we getting close? Yep. Good evening. Welcome to the regular council meeting, Thursday, January the 18th, 2024. I'd like to acknowledge that we're holding this meeting on the traditional lands of the Kwame Nation. And I'd like to thank everybody that fought their way through the snowstorm to be here this evening. And we're going to start the opening of the council meeting with announcements. And we'll start with Councillor Almeida.
Okay, forgot about the announcements part. But we have a lot of things coming up on the docket, so I will hit some of the arts ones that are at the top of my mind right now. I've got one here actually that I did write down. January 21st, the Townsite Heritage Society is doing a tea and tarot fundraiser. You can look up the Townsite Heritage Facebook or website, and there'll be plenty of information over there. And then with February around the corner, we have a lot of arts events happening throughout the month. Max Cameron's got a piano heist performance happening the first weekend of February and the 2nd and 3rd. The 9th and 10th is the Banff International Film Festival, also being held at Max Cameron. Both our tickets are available at the Peak for that. And then the last weekend of February, Laszlo Tomazic has their dance performance as well. Tickets are also available for the Peak for that. So that's just off the top of my head, but there's a lot of arts things going on. And apparently half of council missed the memo from Councillor Elliott and Councillor Palm to wear purple today. So Councillor Southcott's pretty close, I guess. So.
Just sent it to somebody else.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Woznow. Just two things. A reminder to the public that next week there are two special council meetings, both Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 1:30, where we're going to do some deep dives into the budget. So if you want to find out about some of the things that are possible for council to grow or change or cut, those would be two dates to come. And the other item is a neat event at the library, and I'm just lost it. Next Wednesday night at the library, starting at 6 p.m., is an event called The Next Economy, and there's a global leader in the field of transitioning rural communities who are dealing with the closure of major industries and how they transform their economies. So I know that some other members of council might be attending, and it looks to be a good event. Dr. Amanda Cahill is the speaker. I look forward to going. Thanks.
Councillor Dote.
Nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Palm.
Your Worship, I just have not an announcement, but a question of staff. I wonder if anybody here can answer, and that is driving through town today with a lot of snow on our sidewalks and whatever. I was very pleased to see that somebody had taken a tractor to the sidewalks and cleared them. Was that a city operation or was that a private operation? Anybody know? Anyway, whoever it was, I thank them dearly, and I'm sure the public does too. Thank you, Worship.
Did you wish to respond?
Through the chair, we will find out. I will say that our crews have been doing a phenomenal job, but we'll find out whether it's one of our staff or a citizen that we need to thank. Thank you.
Sir Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the announcement I'm going to make isn't like really imminent, but we have a curling bonspiel for our town coming up on the weekend of February 9, 10, and 11, and they're looking for more teams. So if anybody wants to join in and have fun with the curling bonspiel, they do need a few more teams for that weekend. And there's just a sign-up sheet in the curling rink that you can write on, or you can call Roger Pagani, who's the manager over there, and he can help get you in if that works better for you. Also, I just attended a board meeting of the therapeutic riding, and we could really use a few more volunteers to help us with taking care of horses and so forth. If people want to get up in the morning and do a volunteer to do some feeding or some sort of thing like that, they can, pet a horse, feed a horse if they're, fairly knowledgeable in that area. That we could use a few more of those too. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Southcott.
Just one thing to add, Your Worship, and that is my respect and appreciation for our city crews, particularly the waterworks crew that worked all night last Saturday night in those freezing, way below zero freezing temperatures on a water main break up near Lindsay Park. And I have heard expressions of appreciation from more than one person up there. The neighborhood kind of got together to share the news, and one or two people went up to have a look and expressed their appreciation as well for these guys and their dedication. And I can personally reflect on that because they've been in my alley a few years back in the dead of night fixing a water main. So our crews are amazing. Not to mention the 1:30 last night, hearing the snowplow go down our side street where I live. Yeah, I don't know. That's enough, but much appreciation and respect. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to the adoption of the agenda.
Adoption?
All right, do we have a seconder? Councillor Almeida, any questions? All in favor? Passed unanimously. The adoption of the minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes. Is council fine if we have a motion on all 3? Great.
I'll move to accept, got the words now.
Adopt.
I'll move to adopt all 3 minutes listed.
Seconded by Councillor Isaacson. All in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll move now to committee reports. Councillor Doudt, you chaired the meeting on December 19th.
I did, and it was a memorable one. We had a closed meeting beforehand and started the committee of the whole meeting at 3:30. There were a lot of things on that agenda. Most of them have come up again at least 2 meetings later. One of the first things on the agenda was a delegation, which was asking for a letter from the mayor about a ceasefire in Gaza. And I just saw a copy of the mayor's letter today, so it's good that that's going out. We received email from Dr. Varma about the temporary shelter. Made a decision to recommend to council that we not go ahead with the business retention and expansion program. Greenhouse gas reduction pathways feasibility study was discussed. And we talked about digital on-demand transportation service, which was the Zunga bus. And we've came to a conclusion on that after 2 more meetings since this one. We talked about the library agreement renewal and the council remuneration bylaw, which was recommended that we delay discussion about that until the middle of 2024. And there we went. We adjourned at 6:58 p.m. and that was a fun-filled evening.
Thank you, Councillor Doudt. We'll move now to reports for decision. The first one, 8.1, is the temporary use permit 002, renewal PowTown CrossFit. I'd like to ask if there's anybody in the audience or online that would like to provide comment on the proposed permit. Seeing none, the recommendation is that the temporary permit 002 to allow a gym or fitness facility use not exceeding 48% of the gross floor area of the building at 107-4504 Fernwood Avenue, legally described as Lot A, Block 4, District Lot 5731, Plan 18815, be renewed for a 3-year term ending April 15th, 2027. Yes, Councillor Isaacs.
I will move the recommendation as you've just read it.
Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Almeida. Do we have any discussion? Yes, Councillor. Oh, were you voting? Yeah, please, Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. This temporary use permit has been very successful. That the situation up there there was a lot of trouble in that little neighborhood prior to the time that this temporary use permit was issued. And since there hasn't been any trouble at all. I can say that from experience because it took an awful lot of my time, the previous mayor's time, and the planning department's time, if I remember correctly. So I think that this was very successful, and I totally support the renewal going forward.
Councillor Elliott.
I just had a question. I recall when we first issued this temporary use permit, we had some concerns about noise, and I just wanted to ask staff if the neighborhood has decided they like their neighbors or not there now.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I won't speak to whether the neighborhood is getting along, but we did refer this application out to other departments, so fire, engineering, as well as bylaw enforcement, and we haven't had any complaints either through bylaw enforcement or to the planning services department in the 3 years. So as Councillor Southcott pointed out, it has been a successful operation in the 3 years that the permit has been in place.
Okay, is there, just a follow up, was there any way for folks within the neighborhood to know that we're contemplating renewing the permit today other than just having it on the agenda? Did we tell them?
Through the chair again to Councillor Elliott, there is an alternative option. So at this point, the recommendation from staff is to renew and issue the permit without giving notice, but there is an alternative option that would be to issue notice in line with Section 494 of the Local Government Act. That would be giving notice. If that was council's choice, we would do that after the notice period, bring the application back for council to consider at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Isaacson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that, the reason that I support this motion is similar to the reasons why I supported the extension to the TUP for Townsite Brewing front of the street facing seating. Not having received any complaints, it's a good addition to the community, and let's just keep business going. So that's why I support this motion.
No other discussion. I move the motion. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to reports for information. 9.1 is the appointment of the CAO as the Deputy Corporate Officer. So this was agreed upon at Council, and I'm pleased to say that our CAO is also now our Deputy Corporate Officer. So this will allow any issues that come up in the absence of our corporate officer to move along smoothly. Move now to the report. Yes, Councillor Doat.
Just a question, and I was at a regional district meeting when this meeting was held, so I didn't have an opportunity to discuss it. But as we sit here, I'm just wondering if there are occasions when a document needs a signature by the CAO and the Deputy Corporate Officer, and what happens in those situations? Is it legal to have the same person sign the document twice, or what happens?
Through the chair, that's a good question. It's actually something that we are facing, and will unfortunately maybe having to disturb somebody on vacation in order to get that signature. It's unclear, but erring on the side of caution, I can't be two people. I'd also like to make it clear for the public that I'm a backup Deputy Corporate Officer, and that we do have a Deputy Corporate Officer who is is currently temporarily absent. So I just want to reassure the public that Jessica Laforte is our regular Deputy Corporate Officer, and I am simply a backup. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, we'll now move to the report from the Municipal Directors of the qathet Regional District. Who would like to go first?
I've got lots of notes here.
All right,
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Doubt.
I can go through those if I can get all my memory aids out of the way here. So I've got a number of things that I wanted to report on. The first was a regional hospital board meeting that happened on December 20th. And there was not a lot of activity at that particular meeting, but there were two things I wanted to report on. The first was that we passed a motion to have the Regional Hospital District Audit Service Plan amended to include an additional fee of $1,200 to audit the implementation of PS 3280 asset retirement obligations in the qathet Regional District 2024 budget plan and audit services. And that is a new audit requirement for local governments to have an asset retirement plan. And the auditors are going to look into that. And as I reported before, we passed the Regional Hospital District's Draft 1 budget at that meeting. And the next motion was carried that the board directs staff to fund the balance of the Vancouver Coastal Health 2020, 2021, and 2023 cost share requests that have not yet been converted to long-term debt from the Section 20 reserve, and that the change in funding be incorporated into the final draft of the financial plan. And what that means is the regional district decided to fund those past obligations that we had to Vancouver Coastal Health from a reserve, which is set up to do that, rather than borrowing money and rather than raising taxes in this year to cover those past obligations. We've had long discussions about trying to shore up and do a more effective job of making contributions out of tax money into the reserve so that we can smooth the requests that Vancouver Coastal Health has of the Regional Hospital District, so we won't see any large up and down swings in the taxes for that group, which those taxes show up on your tax form when you get them every year. They're actually quite a small amount compared to your residential taxes. But now I'll talk about the regional board meeting that happened on December 20th. That was right the day before our 21st meeting, so I didn't report at that meeting because we had a very full agenda there. The December 20th meeting, alternate municipal director Trina Isaacson was there, filling in and doing a marvelous job that day. And what do we do? We approved at that meeting the director's remuneration and expense amendment and the bylaw to approve a 5% increase to director's annual indemnity. And did the bylaw. Financial plan draft 1. The board directed staff to prepare and forward an amendment to the waste management convergence and service establishment bylaw number 523, 2017, to increase the requisition limit to a tax rate of 49 cents and some hundreds of cents per $100,000 of net taxable value of land and improvements, or a total of 3.674 million. And the board directs staff to seek written consents from 2/3 of the participants in the waste management service to approve that change. So the participants in the waste management service are all of the electoral areas and the city. And in order for the city to give approval for this change to the service bylaw, there will have to come to council. Council will have a chance to make a vote and vote as one participant among all of the electoral areas. So look forward to seeing that come here. We had also a, I want to make sure I didn't miss one here. Nope, didn't. We We also had a rise in report from the in-camera session, which was, and what the regional district does is we don't adjourn our board meeting until after the in-camera session has happened. So we can have an in-camera session, come back to the regular meeting and make a rise and report at the same meeting. It's a pretty quick process and it turns things around quite quickly. And I just want to talk about that. And the rise and report on December 20th was the appointment of Sandy Dunlop and Steve Short to the Qathet Regional District Board of Variance for 3-year terms. I asked during that how many meetings they'd had in the last 3 years, and it was none. And that's probably the number of meetings that board's going to have in the next 3 years, but it was there. And also, and then we send a letter of appreciation to former alternate director Terry Hallow for her service as an alternate director of Electoral Area D, which is Texada Island. And she has been replaced by another alternate director, Texada. I move to the regional board minutes of January 10th. Seems like yesterday. We're back to the full complement there of directors. We had correspondence from the Honorable George Heyman, Minister of the Environment, Climate Change Strategy, and the state of disrepair of the Inland Lake Trail. And I'm not going to read the whole letter, but this time, after a couple of attempts, the regional district actually got a fulsome answer from the minister about what they plan to do and where they're going to get the money to do it and what approvals they have to go through to improve. So they want to replace the bridge, and they're talking about our other spectacular, when you hear about it, aluminum bridge crossing the creek. And, you know, I've been up there with grandkids and other people, and we've stopped at the end of the bridge when I've been walking up there and looked at the amazing big toads and frogs that are all over the place in the wetland. It's right under the bridge. Now, one of the concerns is the fact that there is wildlife living under the bridge and in the mud around the footings and on the trail. And that has to be taken care of, and the appropriate thing with Fish and Wildlife paying attention to what's going on. There also has to be consultations with the First Nations because of the commitments of the provincial government. And the money for this is coming from a disaster relief program from the federal and provincial governments. And I thought it was a good newsletter. There's still concerns that the regional district has to make sure there's ongoing funding to upkeep the trail. But I wanted to highlight that I thought that was a good news story, and we shouldn't miss that they have a plan to try to do it and expect to be working on it in the fall of 2024 when all of the various permits and studies and things that have to happen take place. And it's a beautiful trail. It's a great place to go for a walk. And hopefully it'll be back up to where you can use it for a accessible trail again. Under 8.1, there was correspondence dated November 15th, 2023 from Kim Markle and Stuart Clark, Executive Director of LIFT Community Services, RE a request to convene a joint homelessness task force, which was referred from the November 22nd Committee of the Whole to this January board meeting. And the decision by the board was that they would like to name someone to participate in such a homeless task force if that should come to fruition at some day. Regional district is not volunteering to organize it, but to participate. There was a motion to receive previously made motions that are of interest because we're talking here about our future of a code of conduct. The board is rescinding the following motion made on June 30th, 2022, that the board engage with the Comox Valley Regional District and other regional districts with a view to establish an integrity commissioner position and to share in the cost. And another one that the board is to retain an integrity commissioner or someone under a very similar such title. And the reason for that is that with different programs and different codes of conduct from one regional district to another, it's difficult to find terms of reference that fit for every one of them. So we're going to be removing that part from the idea of a code of conduct. There's still going to be some changes that have to be made to the code of conduct. So if you can't get all the participants together and resolve it through the normal process, there's going to have to be a decision about how to refer that to a third party. At the same meeting, we talked about social planning in the region and to send a letter to the city to talk about that. And the city received that on Tuesday night and has forwarded to staff for discussion. There was a rising report, I think, that everybody has been looking for from the Regional District Board. And that was that the board has awarded Augusta Recyclers, Inc. the operations contract for the Resource Recovery Center. The chair provided an additional statement regarding the 2021 Rising Report. The board established a hybrid model for the Resource Recovery Center operations back in 2021, with the regional district providing management, oversight, scale attendance, and a diversion specialist, and that the regional district would contract the private sector for recycling center and transfer station operational supervision, staff, and rolling equipment, and that this Rising Report fulfills the second aspect of this hybrid model, and that completes the decisions on who's going to operate the Regional District Resource Recovery Center. Part of the changes that have happened there is part of this thing that was discussed in the second one is changes in the requirements for diversion from the provincial government from when we started this program in 2016 until now when we're talking about putting it into effect. So now you can see what's going on there, and I'm glad that we can finally make public the awarding of those contracts. So then we get to the Finance Committee minutes of January the 10th, and I like to report on those because it can get confusing when you have a Finance Committee and a board meeting on the same day. The Finance Committee is in a different cycle. When the Finance Committee makes a recommendation in the morning, it goes to the board meeting at the end of the month, and there's different recommendations that come to the board meeting on the same day. So what happened there? The big issue of that Finance Committee thing was the financial plan draft 2, and there were a couple of amendments to the proposed financial. There was actually 3 amendments to the financial plan draft 2. The first one is that the 2023 surplus in the Lesquiti Island Volunteer Fire Department budget be taken as revenue in 2024 to lessen the impact of taxation on people in the service in Lesquiti, and that the committee recommended that the board direct staff to adjust the requisition amount for the Malsapina Volunteer Fire Department from 12% to 5% for draft 3 in the financial plan. And the last one was that the committee recommends to the board that the board requests staff to examine 2 of the 2024, draft 2, of the 2024 to 2028 financial plan with an attempt to find cost savings that can reduce the overall budget. And after those 3 amendments, we voted to accept draft 2 as a guiding information for the next part of the financial plan. And where are we? So there's a couple of other things on that we're going to affect the city. And one of them is actually a very good news story, and that's the Powell River Education Service Society came to the Finance Committee with a report on what they're doing with the MRDT taxation funding that we get from the Sunshine Coast Regional District for affordable housing, and a report on how they're going to provide housing at below market rates for working people in a house, basically a 4-bedroom house that's going to be separated off with different rooms for people available, and they're going to use those funds for 2024 to create that housing in Powell River. So they're actually putting those dollars to use right now. It's good to see that happening. There was another motion that came up to change draft 3 of the 2024 to 2028 budgets for the general grant in aid and the local grants in aid service to be adjusted for a revised funding model. That staff proposed 2 options for reallocation of the social planning grant budget during draft 3. And it's complicated language, but the next motion that was restated was the committee recommends that the board directs staff to restrict grant in aid funding through general grants in aid and local grants in aid, and that staff proposed 2 options for reallocation of the social planning grant budget during draft 3 of the 2024 to 2028 financial plan. Now, what does that mean? There's a bunch of grant funding that the regional district provides through various different programs, and those programs are funded in different ways. The general grants in aid is funded 50%, more or less, by the city, because that's our share of the assessment in the regional district. The social planning grant service and the economic development grant services are paid by one or more of the electoral areas. So adjusting where these grants are taken from, which pool these grants are taking out from, will affect the proportion of taxes that the city paid. So don't have those total recommendations here, and I'm not sure I understand them myself completely yet, but I'm looking forward to the day when at least the board or whoever's on it will take a good look at those. And there was another motion that basically it's a long one. I won't read the whole thing, but it's a desire for the staff when they're considering grants in the regional district to look at the 10-year history of how the grants were divided by assessment and population among all of the electoral areas in the district. And the committee is also going to look at setting up some long-term multi-year funding agreements for some organizations. One of the problems that the regional district has with that is the regional district budgeting happens by service, and it's generally year to year, and they have to balance the income and the outflow from those services every year. And the ones they propose looking at are the Powell River Recreation User Group Trail Society, the Powell River Therapeutic Riding Association, Powell River Festival of Performing Arts, Savory Island Trust Society, the City Island Nature Conservancy, the qathet Film Society, Pacific Region International Summer Music Association, and Texas Arts, Culture, and Tourism. And then the last few, and I'm getting closer to the end here, is that the committee recommends the board direct staff to amend the grant and aid policy to provide a single grant intake per year on March 31st. And I'll remind everybody that the last few I've been reading are Finance Committee recommendations, and those will come back to the board next week, I guess, on the 24th of January, if I have the date right in my mind. So the last couple that we have is a recommendation that the board set aside $29,200 in the social planning service for social planning initiatives related to wages. That's pretty self-explanatory. And the committee recommends the board include $64,000 in the budget to begin implementing the priority actions identified in the 2024 to 2026 accessibility plan to cover the regional district share of expenses that might be incurred. So that's saying a lot. And if anybody's got any questions they want to ask me, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions from council before we move to council? Yes.
I don't have questions. I just have some addendums and some things I'd like to add to Councillor Doubt's report. So the Inland Lake letter that the board decided to send was to not just thank the minister for his letter and the and the bridge fixing. But there was a little bit of concern that the money was coming from the federal government and there didn't seem to be a commitment for maintaining of assets in the park. And there was no recognition that it wasn't just the bridge that required repair, but the entire trail that had been handed over as a fully accessible trail and an asset to the community, and us wanting to see in the park, you know, a commitment to maintaining that asset. And so there, that was the letter we're sending to the minister is, thank you so much, such great news. It's a bit concerning that you're asking a federal government to do a one-off project when what we're really looking for is maintenance of the asset. So there's a bit of a you know, we're still worried about the asset up there on Inland Lake. And then the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is being new to the regional district board. I had a lot of learning to do about the resource recovery station and how we got where we were and how it fits within what's going on. And a few things I learned, I thought maybe some folks in the public might want to know as well, is that the Resource Recovery Center is part and parcel with implementing an approved waste management plan, which is under the Environmental Management Act. And as it turns out, no asset voting is required to implement a provincial Environmental Management Act waste management plan or solid waste management plan. And so that's where I had sort of this light bulb go on in my head that, okay, so there was no formal process to determine what the borrowing would be and that the electorate approved it because the entire need for that plan is dictated through legislation at the provincial level. We have to have one and we have to follow it, and we don't really get a say-so in that. So that made me feel like, oh, okay. So I'm still learning, and luckily I've been now appointed to the waste management monitoring committee locally and provincially, so that I can increase my understanding about all of the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction for this is with the regional district, not the city. So the city's I wasn't informed very well about the legalities of it when I was a councillor because it was a regional district jurisdiction and we don't have jurisdiction at the city level. So I'm now on 2 more committees to learn as much as I can. The more I learn, the more I think I can figure out ways to do the best we can with what we need to do and cover off our legal requirements. So that was something I learned that's different than how we handle everything else. And I didn't know that before. And so it was quite a surprise to me to find out that we were paying off debt to build something that hadn't already gone through an approval process. And it made me understand why people were not understanding what was going on, because we didn't have that same history that we had with some other things. So there was a different process where folks were involved in a committee of some type to come up with the waste management plan in the first place. But legally, we have to have one and we have to follow it. So if we want to do something different, we actually have to change that waste management plan in order to make changes to what we're doing. We can't just change the budget. And so that's different than the way we handle everything else. So I just wanted folks to know that that is different. And it's a different animal than what we're used to. And I didn't know that until I got learned. But anyway, I thought I would share that because it was news to me, and I'm still learning, and I'm working hard on trying to figure it out. But thank you.
Councillor Pong.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of questions. In regards to the Finance Committee meeting at the RD, general grants and aid, 50/50, and amendments to the grant and aid program switching to a 1-year delivery instead of twice a year. Is that what I'm hearing? And I'm just have one follow-up question.
That's the,
for you answer, and that is, well, we're hearing an answer from Councillor Doubt. I'd like to know if the finance administrator for the city has had any dialogue and discussion with the RD in terms of these changes coming forward? Start with.
Well, first off, it's a recommendation of the Regional District Finance Committee to the Regional District Board. And it is, as I read it, to look into changing the application process to a once per year application as opposed to 2 times per year. And that will come to the board and the board will make a decision on it.
So just to further clarify the grants and aid then once a year.
Proposed.
Grants and aid now are going to be an aid?
You know, so the report is that we are going, the report is a recommendation that staff bring forward a report to the board about how those grants should be participated in. And I pointed out that I'm reporting on that because the decision that comes up there will have an effect on the taxpayers who pay taxes to the regional district in the city.
Yes, that's why I'm asking a question for clarity. Thank you. And the staff, have we had input into the changes? Is that why some of these changes were made? Mallory?
Through the chair, no, we don't weigh in on the regional district's process for grants and aid. It's actually just a bit of a coincidence that they are also reviewing their grant policy and making recommendations while we're reviewing our community partnerships policy at the same time. Because of that, I have spoken with their manager at the time just to brainstorm and you know, we thought if we're changing it, let's talk, because, you know, as 2 large granting organizations, it's good to have those discussions on timing. So we are in conversations with them as we work on revising our bring a proposal forward for our own community partnerships policy.
This question is in regards to the resource center. A little surprised that solid waste management planning is a bit of a surprise to you, because when I was on the board, I was on the solid waste committee representing the city. Does that process or that planning still not have a committee with a city member on it? I quite understand your shot.
So I've not been on that committee, Jim, but I have now been appointed by the regional district onto that committee, just starting in December.
Was the committee just
No, the committee has been ongoing for a while. Director Mark Giesrick used to be the representative. No? Oh, isn't that the one? Oh, different one. I don't know who was on the local one then, but I was just appointed. This just starting in December, and I'm also on the Vancouver Island one as well now, and so I just got the 2 confused for a second. But the committee has been there for a while. It's just I haven't been on it.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Dowd would like to.
I didn't think that it would get to be this complicated a discussion, but my belief is that the committees that Councillor Elliott mentioned are committees that she's on as a director of the regional district. And there is a solid waste management committee that involves some citizens, a member of council. I don't know who it is because we haven't had portfolios and discussions on a number of things. I don't know who the city's representative is. I don't know the last time they had a meeting. But the committee exists. Councillor Elliott is on a provincial and that committee as a director of the regional district for now.
Could I ask the CAO if we can find out if there is a resident of Powell River or a member of our community that is on that committee?
Yes, Your Worship, we can look into that. Thank you.
Great. Anything else before we move on? All right, we're going to move on to bylaws. We have a proposed bylaw 2736. Who's going to speak? Yes.
Yes, I will move that the City of Powell River Lease Rates Bylaw 2736 2024 be adopted. I can speak to it if it's
yes. seconded by Councillor Almeida. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor Woznow. This has been to council, I think this is the fourth time. We wanted to make sure there was lots of opportunity for leaseholders and the public to be able to chime in on these lease rate updates. They make things, they update a number of things to make them either more fair or more consistent, or to fix oversights of previous lease agreements, and this is the final step. It's been read for second, third time at previous council meetings, and now we are voting on adoption.
Great. See no, Councillor Elliott.
I just don't see it in our agenda package, and maybe I've fallen behind, but did we have input after our last reading from folks? And or was it shopped around and we didn't get any feedback?
Through the chair, I'll pass that off to Ms. Matthews to respond. Thank you.
Through the chair, Councillor Elliott, we've had no feedback other than from the library asking us the impact that it might have on their budget. That's the only feedback that we've received.
Thank you.
A motion, I'll call the all in favor. That's unanimously. We'll now move to new business, and that is rotation of municipal directors of the qathet Regional District. This is a recommendation that I'm moving forward. That beginning March 15th, 2024, a 16-month rotation system for municipal directors to serve on the qathet Regional District Board be established. That on March 15th, 2024, Councillors Palm and Southcott will start their term as municipal directors on the qathet Regional District Board, and Councillors Isaacson and Mayor Woznow will serve as alternatives for Councillor Palm and Southcott, respectively. That the term of Councillor Palm and Southcott and their alternates will end on July the 15th, 2025. That prior to July 15th, 2025, Council will approve the appointment of municipal directors and their alternates to serve on the qathet Regional District Board. The reason I'm bringing this motion forward, and I'll start, I think we've discussed at length that when our council was elected, we did not have a CAO. He had resigned basically the week before that we came in. And so we went through a period of interim and acting CAOs. And in that process, we had two consultants, George Cuff and Tracy Lawrenson, come in and talk to us about how our council operates and the relationship between council and staff. And we have implemented a number of those recommendations. Significantly, that council has one employee, and that is the CAO. And if council has an issue, it goes through the CAO. And also in terms of supporting that, we've moved away from portfolio systems so that, again, to facilitate communications going directly through the CAO. In looking at the notes of both of those consultants and the fact that we've moved along that path, it occurred to me that with regard to the regional district, that each councillor should have an opportunity, if they so wish, to serve on the regional district. I think all of council brings a different perspective, different experience. And in light of the fact that the representatives from the city, in fact, are not representing the city on the regional district, but they are directors that are representing the citizens of Powell River. So that is the background to my recommendation, and I'll ask if there are any questions. Oh, sorry, I guess I have to ask if there is a motion seconded before we have discussion. Okay.
I'll second for discussion.
Are you,
I'll second it for discussion.
okay, thank you. And Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, and thank you for the idea that we all deserve to be on the regional district, because I do in part agree. There's some aspects of this motion that I think that are not well addressed as far as the needs of the regional district and how they operate. The regional district puts out assignments once a year for committees and things that you serve on at the anniversary point of election. So each November, December-ish, they do an exercise of figuring out which directors will sit on which committees and do those assignments for a 1-year period each year. So to have people switch at a different time would be disruptive to how they distribute amongst the directors the assignments that go out for an annual term. Currently, I'm sitting on the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Action Steering Committee, and I sit on both of the solid waste management committees, and I'm an alternate at the library for and an alternate on the finance one for the sorry, I don't remember the name.
I'll fill everybody in later.
It's the committee where provincially the regional district sits on the oh damn it, I have to look it up. But it's a cross province committee for the municipal finance that loans us money. That's the one. So I'm an alternate on that one. So we would need to think about if we were switching mid, at different times, how that could impact that whole process. And it's a bit of a balancing act. They do a survey amongst the entire directors and try to be equitable and match skills and interests and those kinds of things. So I think we should rotate some too, but I don't think two new at the same time is that. I think that puts the city at a disadvantage, because we would have folks coming in without the knowledge they need to participate in things that have been ongoing for a while. Whereas if we switch one at a time, we would always have one that's kind of up to speed while we're switching. And that's better for the city and representing our voters. So I've always thought that what we should do is, and it takes almost a year to get up to speed on how the district works and be effective as a director, in my opinion. So if we had every 2 years, we switched out a single director and rotated in another one, we would always have the continuity. And if we time that with the annual date of elections, we would always be smoothly transitioning at the time that the regional district is reassigning all of their duties anyways. So for electing chairs for the various different, currently George Dowd is the chair of the hospital board. So that gets reelected each year too. So if we timed it for that period of time, then the new directors would get to participate in that allocation, and it wouldn't disrupt how they do their business there. I think that if we had one seasoned director from the city each time and rotated a different person in one at a time, we would have a better representation for the city. That's what I think.
Almeida.
When I saw this proposed a couple of days ago, it gave me a chance to kind of think about it. I hadn't thought about it much before, but most of my thoughts were very much in line with what Councillor Elliott just shared. When we voted on our original directors upon starting our term 15 months ago, we had, I think, made the vote based on a 2-year period at that time. which would basically be this November. And when the thought of switching two out at this time, I had a similar thought to Councillor Elliott, was it's not good for any organization. I just went through a bylaw process for a local nonprofit, and we switched the terms there to be staggered so that only half of the board would turn over every year. And so when it comes to this, I would kind of be more in line with what Councillor Elliott just shared versus completely switching it at this point, especially now knowing more about their committee process at the regional district, which I wasn't aware of.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I have to say, I definitely, I spent considerable time thinking about this and pondering my own feelings about it, because I have kind of a spectrum of feelings. And I really, I like the idea, because the idea that I like is that council members understand how the regional district works and also what's going on the regional district. Though I was an alternate director for 2 terms, I can't say that the last term I spent an awful lot of time keeping up with what was going on the board. I actually, looking back, I felt that I spent inadequate time because I just prioritized my time in other directions. It's not that I wasn't busy. However, this is no small task. I have a 3-inch binder that's full of instructions and policies and data that directly pertains to how to do this job. It is no small task. And I've gone through 2 different training sessions at the beginning of terms as an alternate director for the board. I respect the 2 directors who do sit on the board currently from who are councillors. This term, I've spent a lot more time paying attention to what's going on the board. I've attended the majority of meetings either by sitting in their chambers or in their boardroom, or remotely when I have been able to get down there. But I still haven't spent the amount of time that is necessary to actually do the job. I'm merely familiar. So I really come to a point where I cannot feel more than ambivalent about my support of this, because personally, I'm named as one of the proposed councillors to sit on the board. And that would require me to defer something else that I'm committed to already, which I would do absolutely for sure. And I would do happily if it was the will of this council that this change be done. I have to say that I would be happier to go with what we originally committed ourselves to, and that was a review coming up this fall. Because I wouldn't truly be happy to defer some of the things I'm committed to outside of my council position. So the best I can say is that I do feel ambivalent about this. I have great respect for anyone who takes that job on, just like I have respect for all of my colleagues here and anyone in the past who's taken on this job, because these jobs are way bigger than meets the eye. And that is the position I'm in. So thank you, Your Worship.
Question to the CAO and the CO. It's obvious that there is not a consensus, and I would like to withdraw the motion if you can advise of the procedure involved in that.
Through the chair, I'm going to explain to you that I have somebody helping us with corporate services. I'm not actually texting a friend. So I'm going to anticipate that she's going to give us a bit of guidance. If you would just give me a moment. Thank you.
Councillor Palm wishes to say something.
Just wait till we,
Through the chair, I don't have the answer right yet, but I will let you know that as time goes on, I will be learning the corporate officer backup role more efficiently for you.
right, in the interim, we will, oh, yes.
Okay, what I've got here is that you simply defeat the motion. So you call for a vote and it can be easily withdrawn just by simply asking all in favor, and then you don't have to rescind it. The motion will just fail.
Right, we have two councillors that.
Could you repeat that answer for me? I don't think I understood it.
Okay, through the chair, given that you seconded, you've moved and seconded the motion, it's on the table. So the easiest thing is to go for a vote, and then there's no need to withdraw it because you have a motion on the table, and the motion fails, and then you're done. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two councillors that have asked to continue. So Councillor Palm and then Councillor Doubt.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to speak to a motion where I'm being appointed to something, but I will do in this case. That is, I appreciate this coming forward, Your Worship, and I think you've probably given this quite a deal of respect and thought. And I first of all want to say a great deal of gratitude to both our councillors that have been working, do a very tough job, which is being on the regional board, because it's a very time-consuming task, especially these days when they change their meeting schedule to meet numerous meetings all day long for hour after hour. I don't know quite how that is a good thing, but if I was put on the board, I'd be changing that. I think there should be meetings spread out throughout the month and not all day long so that you can't even move at the end of a meeting. But that's a side note. My perspective on this is I support the recommendation because in terms of our present council, our ages, how long we've been here, and the experience that everybody brings to the table, everybody needs to understand how the regional district board works. Because sitting here tonight, hearing the report, I don't think everybody on this council understands how it works. And it's a very tough job and very comprehensive, and there's a great deal of work that needs to be put into it. So I wouldn't put my name forward on this motion if I didn't have the time to do the job. Because of the portfolio system that has disappeared, I don't have particular departments that I need to correspond with and meet with on a regular basis. And that gives me the flexibility to not only be here, but being at the regional district, protecting the interests of the citizens in Powell River, especially on the financial front. And I'm not going to go down that road because it is what it is. We all know what it is. There's a problem. We need to address it. So, Councillor Southcott, I applaud you for going to all of those meetings, and I'm sure you have a good understanding of what's going on down there. And it wouldn't take very long to be at that table and get up to speed on how that functions. I'm sure the present council members that are on that board as directors would help us out. We could have meetings, we could discuss, and we also have 2 months prior to March 15th, where we can attend all of the meetings, get a good sense of what you want to volunteer for as a board member on the regional district, and put your name forward when the time arises. So all of the obstacles that Councillor Elliott proposed really are immaterial in my mind. I'm only speaking for myself as somebody that's been there in the past. So I think this is very timely. I think it's a good thing for this council because we can move forward and have a better understanding of where the money is being spent and how we need to better protect our citizens from costly increases. Put it that way. Thank you, Worship.
So Dote.
So spent a lot of time thinking about this over the weekend and today about what I might say or what I might not say. And I just want to talk about some of the implications of doing this and make sure that everybody understands the magnitude of what this rotation process would mean. Okay? So whenever you have a new member on a board, be it a council or regional district board, there is an induction process. Generally, you get a consultant in, and a consultant goes through all of the rules, the kind of binders that Councillor Southcott is talking about, the procedure binders, the law, the community charter, all of that. Some of the detail on the voting rules, how the regional district works, how you participate in the process. That's generally a day each time it happens. So, you know, there is a cost to that. There is a time cost to that for the people that are joining the board and for the board itself. Talking about cost, I already had a call from the IT person at the board, who I was talking to about something else. It said, looks like we're going to have to get some new laptops because the policy is to buy new laptops because they don't want, they have software licenses, which are a actual cost item on the board's cost sheet. You have more licenses, they cost more money. It's software licenses are a problem in the city budget too. You know, those things exist. They have to change every time there's a new member on the board. That has to be recycled. They have to be gone through. There's the introduction, the cost of new equipment. As Councillor Elliott has said, there's a number of assignments that go with being present on the regional district. I've got probably half a dozen of them. One that's coming up that's right on the cusp of a change is the Municipal Insurance Agency, where I'm the board's delegate to that. They're going to have a meeting coming up, but during this changeover, there won't be time to appoint somebody different from the municipality to be on that board. I have been the elected chair of the Regional Hospital District Board. The Regional Hospital District is having its first meeting next Wednesday, and the first item on the agenda there is to elect a new hospital chair. I've been thinking about what do I do? Do I stand for nomination? Because I have to know that if they elect a municipal delegate and this motion passes, the municipal director will have to change over and have to be another election in 2 months to change that. Or do I just not stand, and the result would be that someone, an electoral area director and not a municipal director, gets elected. That's a cost thing and a process thing. It takes time for the regional district to do all those. And the experience is not something to take lightly. You know, I've been on the board of the regional district for a full term and just a little over a year now, and in November, I felt it necessary to ask the CAO, or the corporate officer of the regional district, to go through on a whole number of questions on the voting. Which is a weighted vote, which is not a weighted vote? How do you get when do you get to vote on something? How many people need to vote on it to make it a quorum? When, you know, why do all the directors get to vote on the change to the Malsapina Fire Hall, and we don't get to vote on some other ones? And it's a complicated process to learn exactly how the voting process goes. Some people have suggested to me that it's simple, that the municipal directors have got 7 votes and we can do whatever we want. Not that simple. It takes some time to learn that stuff. You know, Councillor Elliott's been on for more than a year now, and she's admitted that there is things that she doesn't understand about the solid waste program, and that's a big issue on the regional district. It takes time to learn those things and time to deal with it. I've heard people around this table saying that they've only been on council for a year and they're just starting to learn their role. And that's true with the regional district as well. I don't think it serves the city or the taxpayers in the city well to have continually have brand new people who are trying to get experience on the board, sitting on the board with many people who've been there for well over 4 years. And I think the newest person on the board's got more than a year, but is in there for a full term. I think you have to think about that experience level that it brings and the decision-making ability that happens with that. So, you know, I think it's reasonable. I think all of the regional district appointments that I have heard of are for full terms or when someone or when a by-election takes place in the city. I was just not going to talk about it too much, but I was watching a YouTube of the Harrison Hot Springs, the Village of Harrison Hot Springs meeting, where they were electing a representative to the regional district, and they appointed a councillor for the remainder of the term. That's about 3 years. I don't know why they had the position coming up now, but they were busy appointing one. So, you know, I think we need to take advantage of the experience that it builds, save a lot of red tape, paperwork, and a lot of work for the regional district that's going to have to try to adjust to this and try to be training new people all the time and introducing people as they go along. So I'm not in favor of the motion as it stands. And, you know, my position won't be much different if you ask me in November what I think about doing it then.
Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't repeat what other councillors have said. I just want to express appreciation. What I like about the motion is the intention for fairness and getting experience and learning how the regional district works, because it is very different from the city. And I think it's helpful for us to understand that. And also the intention of cycling with alternatives, kind of being ready at bat, learning their role and stepping in. But I think sticking to the currently voted on 2-year term and revisiting it this November, I think is probably based on the experience of the current directors and for the regional district itself, the best time to revisit this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, having listened to the issues being brought up, I'm going to vote in favor of this motion. I think there are pluses and minuses that have been pointed out. It's one thing for each councillor to have a better understanding. And I'm confident that given the skill set of all of our councils, that they could get up to speed quickly, but clearly there is not a majority that see this as a positive step forward. So I'm going to vote against it, and we'll have an interesting discussion in November as we look at the replacement or the passing of a motion to assign 2 new directors. So if there's no further discussion, I will call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Worship,
Yes.
I'd like to make a suggestion, maybe a motion, depending on what staff needs it to be. But looking at the calendar and seeing as our term started November 1st, 2 years from that would be this November. So I'd like to make a motion that we put this topic back on the agenda and in our September meeting, whether it's council or committee of the whole, which would then give the new, if we decide to appoint a new director at that time, it would give them 3 regional director meetings to attend before taking over the new spot November 1st. And I will lean on Councillors Elliott and doubt if 3 meetings would be adequate or if we should put it at the August meeting instead. But I think August or September would be an appropriate time to have that conversation versus waiting till November. Don't know if I need to motion that or not, or staff can just pencil that in, but figured I'd put it out in public.
Yes. Are you seconding the motion?
I don't think we're having a motion. I think I wanted to provide some comments and advice, I guess. So if the intention is to change directors in November, I think we need to probably talk about that at the committee level first so that we can make a recommended motion that we've talked about first, rather than, you know, coming straight to the council. If we can form a motion that most of us agree with to begin with, we'll have a better chance of it passing. I'm not entirely opposed to making changes. I don't know that I necessarily agree with making changes to all of the city directors all at once. I think that's a little bit risky, but I would love to have that discussion sort of earlier, as Councillor Alameda pointed out. So maybe we throw that back on the agenda for September and we sort it out early enough that we have time to make change before the anniversary date.
Councillor Palm.
Yeah, just a point of order. I want to remind council that at our first meeting, we passed a motion that Elliot would serve for a 2-year term, and that would be in the 2 years. So just want to remind everybody that we already have a motion on the floor.
No.
Okay, I'm going to just ask the CAO if she would clarify.
Through the chair, you don't have a motion on the floor. You voted on it and it was defeated. Yes, that's correct.
Point of order. We're getting into a.
Sorry, Councillor Doubt, when you call for a point of order, the chair, procedure-wise, then asks you what you think the point of order is, and then the chair will decide.
Okay.
Would you like to clarify why you're calling a point of order?
I very much would. We've just had a motion on the floor. We've dealt with it. We are basically at the end of our agenda. There is no motion on the floor right now, but we're having an extensive discussion. People are bringing up facts. I disagree with Councillor Palm's recollection of what might have been passed in November of 2023. And I think if there is no pressure to get this figured out today, and that the idea that Councillor Elliott had, that if we want to talk about this, we could spend some time talking about it in committee when we all have time to prepare our facts and see what we're going to say.
So the chair's ruling is Councillor Almeida raised the issue of whether or not it would be appropriate to set a time in September. Councillor Elliott has made comments. Councillor Palm has made comments. I'm going to allow the discussion to continue. And if a council member would like to put forward a motion, we'll consider that. If not, after all councillors have an opportunity to voice their opinion, we will then move on. So I'm going to go to Councillor Almeida and Councillor Palm.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So to clarify what Councillor Palm had mentioned first, in November 1st, 2022, during our inauguration, we did vote on a 2-year term. We did not vote on any subsequent plan beyond that 2-year term. It was just that the initial term was going to be for 2 years, and then it would be open for discussion again. So just to clarify that, I would like to move then in respect to Councillor Elliott's comments. I think more time is better than less time. So I would actually like to move that we put this on the agenda for the August 13th Committee of the Whole meeting, which will give us the time to have the discussion and then bring it forth at the September 12th council meeting, and then give any newly elected directors the opportunity to warm up to their November 1st transition.
Do we have a seconder? We have multiple seconders. So Southcott, seconder. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Palm.
Just try to clarify this, unless my memory is not working correctly. I am pretty sure that unless we changed it at the meeting, that that motion was pretty specific to appoint both Councillor Dowd and Councillor Elliott for a 2-year term. And I was going to bring it up if we had passed this motion tonight, because we would need to rescind that previous motion, because I am sure that there was a second component to that motion that would appoint Councillor Southcott and myself to the board after 2 years. And that's the reason, Councillor Doubt, that both Councillor Southcott and I went to the training at the regional district when we started up and had the orientation, and we're attending meetings for some period of time for months later. So I don't understand where that fell off the wagon.
Okay, so we're going to deal with clarification on this issue as it may be relevant. So Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Chair. I've actually pulled up the minutes from our November 1st, 2022 meeting where we passed it, and I will read it verbatim. It's moved and seconded that in accordance with Section 198 and Section 200 of the Local Government Act, the following members of council will be appointed as municipal directors to the qathet Regional Board for a term of 2 years. Councillor George Doubt with a weighted vote assignment of 4, and Councillor Cindy Elliott with a weighted vote assignment of 3. And Councillor Southcott will serve as Councillor Doubt's alternate, and Councillor Palm will serve as Councillor Elliott's alternate. And that's all.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion passed with 1 opposed. We'll now move. Do we have any questions? Mr. Galinsky.
Needs to hear though.
We know there's many people that are online that want to hear what your question is.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, on that last motion from Councillor Almeida, I didn't record who was opposed to that motion. Councillor Doubt. Thank you very much. That was my question. I didn't have any more questions, Your Worship. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Does anybody else in the audience? Yes, please come forward.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I've got 2 questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, if you would introduce yourself.
I'm Mark Gisborne. I'm from Electoral Area B, directly east of the municipality, and I've got 2 questions. The first question is, at the end of the month, there's the Local Government Leadership Academy, and I was wondering who's going.
I guess you've received your answer.
Oh, okay. And the second question is, as to tonight's agenda on item 12.1, when I saw the agenda, I submitted a request to be considered as a delegation. And I was just wondering, under the procedure bylaw, my understanding is that it is the presiding member who can make that decision. But when it came to item 4 under delegations, I do not recall any request from the presiding member if there was any delegations, registered or un, and I'm just wondering why.
Okay, I believe that the chair is probably responsible for that oversight. The CAO did mention that to me, and I thought, given the nature of the discussion, that it probably would be appropriate to follow our normal procedures, which would not make an exception to allow that presentation. I'm sorry, that should have made that clear during the council meeting.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Anybody else in the now barren council chambers that wish to ask? I will then turn to, we have nobody online. And do we have, yes.
Move to adjourn.
Seconded. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Drive carefully.